Hey there, everybody, and welcome to our Arrow after show for Season 2, episode number 4 and 5. And the reason it's 4 and 5 is because last week we didn't get around to doing the show. Some things came up. Our apologies. But we are going to cover a little bit of episode 4 from last week and, of course, this week. My name is John Campea. Hey, everybody. And I should get this out of the way. Yes, I am that John Campea from AMC, but please understand that this Arrow After Show has nothing to do with their AMC. This is just stuff we do on our own time because we are big fans of the show Arrow. Joining me, first of all, to my right is, of course, my wife, Ann Campea.
Hey, everybody. Happy to be back.
And beside you...
Kaori Take!
Yay!
And we're all here. We're going to talk about... Let's start off with Arrow Season 4. I'm all about what's happening right now. Or episode 4 of Season 2. I can't even remember what happened last week. So, Anne, talk a little bit about last week's episode before we get into this week's episode.
Okay, I'll start by saying that I was not very impressed with last week's episode, considering we were coming off the high of episode 3, where there was just so much going on, going back to an episode where you have kind of a cheesy villain who I really didn't like, the mayor. I kind of wish that he's the one who died and not the doll maker in the episode before that.
He was a terrible, terrible villain.
Just terrible.
The mayor. That was so stupid.
I couldn't stand it. It reminded me of all the episodes of Smallville that I hated, where they would bring in these cheesy characters just for one episode. Unfortunately, we're probably going to see the mayor again. The two things I took out of it, though, were the unveiling of Brother Blood and some sort of diabolical plan that he has. I don't know what was in that serum that he shot the mayor in the mayor's body, but we'll see. And then also just a lot more background on Sarah Lance. So I think those two for me were the biggest takeaways from episode 4.
For me, I actually liked episode 4. I thought that it was upbeat, and seeing Sarah Lance return and Oliver and her have a quick connection. It was nice to see Oliver have a sidekick who's almost up to par with his fighting skills, and they both have the bond of being on the island. They both know that they have a past that they're really afraid to talk about. And yeah, the mayor sucked. He was a terrible villain. But the last, the villain that popped up that was actually kind of freaky was Sebastian Blood. Yeah. And I kept imagining John Campea saying it.
Sebastian Blood. And well, I mean, that was the funny thing. Like, we're watching this show. It's like you can always tell in this show when you meet a new character if this character is somebody important or not. If they're not, it's like, Oliver, meet my assistant, Timmy Brown. How you doing, Timmy? Nice to meet you. Oliver, I'd like you to meet my other assistant who works here in the lab with me, Hezekiah Storm.
And then they play this music. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Like, we'll get to this in this episode, but when Professor Ivo or Dr. Ivo introduced himself, you hear this music. Yeah, like as if it wasn't obvious enough that he's from the comic book. He's from the comic book when they play that little tune in the background.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah, well, yeah, he introduced me to this other sidekick of his, Hezekiah Storm.
I mean, there was one thing from last episode, too, that Black Canary said to Oliver real quick was, what happened to Slade? And then he didn't answer that. So that was one thing that really caught me.
Well, of course, the real overall, the big story of that episode, of course, was we've known for a while who Black Canary was, but the revelation of Sarah and to Oliver and how he was going to handle it and all that kind of stuff. And I thought I agree with you, Carrie. I did like last week's episode. I didn't like it as much as the episode before. The mayor stuff really took the wind out of the sails for loving the episode, which is really too bad. But we have been waiting for them to do the Black Canary reveal, and I think they did it well. I think they handled it really nicely. The whole Sebastian Blood thing, at the end, realizing when he's doing all these experiments, he's some kind of thing he's doing, whatever. So I guess they're going to get to that a little bit later. That's going to be a larger storyline. I don't think he has anything to do with the League of Assassins. That's the impression that I'm getting. So, yeah, I liked the episode. Didn't love it, but mostly because of the mayor. So, speaking of League of Assassins,
yes,
I can tell you right now, this was my favorite episode of Arrow in the entire series so far.
Wow.
I loved this episode of Arrow. Even though not an awful lot happened in it, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a change in direction that happened in this episode. The tone shifted. And it suddenly became a very heavy show. Not that to be good, a show has to be heavy. Not everything has to be the dark, bloody night. But there is a distinct heaviness to it in this episode, but it's handled really well. It's a heaviness with depth, not just a heaviness with, like, when she's sitting there talking about, look, I went to this dude's house and I slit his throat and let his children find his body in the morning. Like, shit just got real. Like, holy crap, this is heavy. I love the way they dealt with her. I wasn't totally thrilled with how quickly they did the reveal of her to her dad.
I agree.
It's just like, I'm on the street, Sarah, Daddy, hug, commercial. I wasn't really thrilled with how they handled that, but overall, we can go into more details as we go on, but just overall for me, my favorite episode in the entire series so far. I loved it. Anne, how about you?
I also love this episode. I thought it was a big kind of jump forward, considering I didn't like last week's episode. But League of Assassins, come on. The constant mention that Ra's al Ghul is there waiting for Sarah to return, that's kind of scary. And just seeing the fight sequences get better and better as we go along with this season. And you pointed it out. Finally, a chick that can fight. When we would see Laurel try to take on some people, that just kind of hurt my eyes. But whoever they have choreographing the fight sequences in this season, it's great. It's definitely a vast improvement from season 1.
Corey?
Yeah, I liked this episode as well. I would not say it's the best episode ever, but it was good. And I agree with you, John. I did not like the reveal of Sarah to her father so quick. And then for him to lose her so quick right after, I really didn't like that. The one thing that really bothers me, I'm sorry guys, but I don't like the storyline of Katie Cassidy or Laurel Lance having an addiction or a drug problem. It's just something that she needs something better than that.
Anne mentioned this while we were watching the show. It reminds me a lot of the Vince having a cocaine problem storyline that they did in Entourage in like the second last season. It just feels so forced and so wasted. And look, I don't want to become a broken record player about how much I dislike this Laurel character, but she's a waste. Like right now, the way she's being used, she's a complete waste. And like everything that kind of comes out of her mouth makes no sense and is so random. And it's like her and Oliver had just established a few episodes earlier, okay, too many things have changed. We can't have a relationship.
Right.
Okay, great. So, they go out and have dinner and he walks her to her apartment and she thought that meant they were going to fuck. Pardon my language, everybody. But that's what I said as we were watching the episode. It's like, she just thought, oh, he's walking me up the stairs, time to get it on. And when he pulled back, she decides to spew her entire life sob story. Everybody leaves me. My mommy left me. My daddy. Just because he wouldn't plow you in the bedroom? This is all coming out because just a little, what? Yeah. What? And then all of a sudden she's talking about Sarah again. She hasn't talked about Sarah in over a year, but now she's talking about Sarah all the time. So it's just, and then, the forced drug problem and all this kind of stuff. It's just, and you can't blame, what's the name of the actress again?
Katie Cassidy.
Katie Cassidy. I don't blame Katie Cassidy for it because she's acting fine. It's just they're not giving the character much to go on.
I even think that her being on the prosecution against Oliver's mom it's not necessary. No. Because it's not really causing conflict. He still went out to dinner with her.
It's beyond not necessary because their lawyer said in there, this is clearly a conflict of interest. It's like, no prosecutor would put this girl on this case. That would not happen.
And her excuse, it's a new job. I don't
have that much power or whatever. Yeah.
Whatever. But I agree with you. I think they just don't know what direction to take this character at this point. Too. Sarah Lance is far more interesting than Laurel. And I just can't see the transition, if there ever will be one, with Laurel into the Black Canary.
Laurel isn't going to be the Black Canary. I mean, she's just not.
Maybe.
I think what I feel like right now it feels like the Amazing Spider-Man, because in the Amazing Spider-Man right now we've got Emma Stone playing Gwen Stacy, but we also know that Mary Jane is coming, and so all of us are now watching Emma Stone in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, knowing at some point she has to go away. Emma Stone's character is going to die at some point,
Right.
because we know Spider-Man ends up with Mary Jane. That's how that works. And I feel like right now we are just waiting for the death of Laurel. I feel like whether it's the death of Laurel or Laurel becoming a villain or Laurel losing her mind or something, or Laurel moving away, something at some point eventually has to happen where Laurel is going to be removed from the scene. She's going to be taken out of the picture, and we know that that's coming. And I just wish they would do it better, because I don't like the way they're doing that right now. Out of all the other thousands of things I love about what they're doing and how they're handling in the show, that's the one thing. And maybe one of the other reasons I think this is my favorite episode of all time is they got rid of Hoodie Boy.
He wasn't in this episode.
He wasn't in this episode at all. Yeah, so that I like that.
I do think that was really weird. His connection with what was her name?
Sin?
Yeah,
Sin.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why they bonded so much when
I completely agree.
it was just odd. Like I thought she was running away from you and she hit you.
They had one conversation, and Allie's like, "Now we are blood brothers."
Yeah, they visit her in the hospital, and
They stay with her,
Yeah,
paying her
That's
hospital
true. I didn't get that
bills.
either.
I was quite puzzled by that, but yeah. But another good thing about this episode was Moira really started to feel comfortable with her kids and trusting. And so maybe there's that big secret that I don't even know. It sounds like it's so big that her kids might not stick around. I think. Maybe.
What did you think it was?
I said secrets.
Secrets.
Yeah, I want to know what it is.
The other thing that didn't make sense to me, though, and maybe I just missed something here. Well, there are two kind of inconsistencies. They talk about having to bring her back to Ra's al Ghul. But then in one conversation, he says, the child of Ra's al Ghul wants you back.
That's true. He did say that.
So I'm wondering if that's the doctor we see her with on the boat, if that's the child of Ra's al Ghul. And what do you think?
I don't think so. If they're, and again, Arrow continues to surprise us by not going with the true stories in the comic books, but I don't think there's a linkage there in the comic books. I think Professor Ivo, or Dr. Ivo as they're calling him in the show, is separate from Ra's al Ghul in the comic book series. But the point I want to bring up is they introduced Professor Ivo, which is huge, because he's the one who creates.
And of course, what's your name? I'm Professor Ivo.
Yes. But I think we're finally getting somewhere with what the thing you didn't like about the show, which is there's not that main storyline or that main thread
for
that's
this season
happening for you. And I think we're finally getting there with the last episode with Sebastian Blood being referenced as Brother Blood and doing whatever he's doing with the serum. And then this episode with Dr. Ivo, I know he was just in there for just a second, but for those that read the comic books, we know he's huge in the creation of Is it Amazo? I don't know how to pronounce the name, but he's huge in creating the villain that is one of the most dangerous for the Justice League. So it's like one of those things where, as a comic book fan, you're like, oh, are they going to go there with that? Because there's just so much they can do with Justice League, with Ra's al Ghul, with Dr. Ivo, Amazo. Who knows if they're going to go
Here's
and touch any of
something
those.
a little interesting that you guys may not be aware of. Maybe you are. Earlier, either today or yesterday, Stephen Amell took to his Twitter or Facebook, I can't remember which one, and put up an old picture of a comic book that was announcing the newest member of the Justice League, Green Arrow. And he put that picture up. And that's an old one, very old. So that got some people speculating, does this mean Green Arrow is going to be brought into the DC cinematic universe with Justice League? Which, no, I don't believe that at all. I don't think DC and Warner Brothers is that stupid that they would cross those lines. I think they know they're much better positioned for success having their television universe and their movie universe completely separate from each other. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just think it'd be a really stupid move, and I think they know that. But it raised the possibility, what if Green Arrow in the show is going to form, his own version of the Justice League. Him,
Yeah.
Black Canary, Diggle gets in there somewhere. We know Flash is going to be making an appearance at some point. So, there's that. I don't know if they'd run a Justice League in the TV universe and a Justice League in the movie universe, but there's nothing that says they can't.
No, there's nothing.
Even Felicity Smoke can be the intelligence. There's all kinds of...
Yeah, and they don't need to go by the Justice League from the past. They could go by the Justice League that was introduced, I think, in the New 52. Which has those characters, which has Green Arrow, which has Canary in it, I think.
Yeah, and there's nothing saying that
they do whatever they want.
There's nothing saying that they have to completely adhere to what's in the comic books. This is a TV show. They can go. Smoke may, for all she may become Oracle. Yeah. For all we know, and obviously in the comic books, Ms. Gordon is Oracle, but they don't have to do it that way. Here, somebody else can be Oracle. Maybe Smoke, because she's already kind of filling that role. We're going way off on a tangent on speculation.
Fun tangent, though.
But here's one other thing that I don't say. Maybe you guys can explain this to me, what I missed. Uh-huh. So, Sarah is talking to her dad after the fight is done. They had just had the big fight. And she's explaining, I've got to leave because if they find out I'm alive, they're still going to come after me. They're going to come after you. They're going to come after Mom. They're going to come after Laurel. Okay. Then why did you just let that one assassin live and tell him to go back to Ra's al Ghul and tell him that her family's off limits? If you wanted them to think you're dead, you kill that guy. And since they don't think you're dead, why are you going to leave your family unprotected?
Yeah, a lot of it
I don't
puzzled
get
me
that.
too. I don't know. The fact that she just got her father back and the fact that she has to leave, it didn't make sense to me. I felt like we just got her too. I want her to stay. As a viewer, I think it's the best time to have her reunite with her family. It just didn't make sense for me. I hope she comes back next episode or very, very soon.
I got a feeling she won't be gone for more than 2 episodes. But I didn't understand the motivation. Like, either I need to leave so that the League thinks I'm dead and they leave my family alone.
But that didn't happen.
But you just let the one guy go specifically to go tell Ra's al Ghul that you're still alive. Or you stick around to protect your family.
Well, maybe Laurel's drug addiction or alcohol addiction is because her sister has to come back to the rescue.
Could be.
Maybe that's the plot. I don't know.
Okay, so Arrow is still there to protect the family, though. So that's kind of check, right? So he's still there. She's trusting him to protect her family. And maybe if she had killed that guy, then that would be even more motivation for the League to come looking for the guys that went and tried to...
That's better than an excuse I had in my head, so...
So maybe it's better that she plugs that in, that, hey, Ra's al Ghul, I'm still alive, but I'm not in Starling City. Come find me wherever I'm at. And kind of draws the attention away from Starling.
But wouldn't if you were an assassin, wouldn't you want to go where it hurts the most? Like, she'll come back if I go after her sister or her mom or her father. That's why I'm thinking she shouldn't have left them unprotected.
There's maybe these are questions that they will answer a little better a little bit later on. Hey, I wanted to do this a little bit earlier tonight. I want to show, speaking about superheroes and Arrow and all that kind of stuff. A little bit earlier this evening, Anne was with me at my office because I had a couple of special guests coming to meet me at my office tonight. It was Vince Vaughn and Chris Pratt. Now, they've got a new movie coming out called Delivery Man. But Chris Pratt, for those of you who don't know, is playing Star-Lord in the upcoming Marvel film Guardians of the Galaxy. So I wanted to show you this picture that was taken tonight at my office. There's Anne in the middle. This is taken a little bit earlier tonight with Vince Vaughn and Star-Lord himself, Chris Pratt, from Parks and Rec fame. So I just wanted to share that picture. No real reason to share the picture. I just thought it'd be a really cool picture to show you guys.
And never will we see Marvel and DC crossover
ever again.
That picture is not alluding to the fact that we think that's going to happen.
No, not at all, not at all. Okay, so let's wrap this up, and let's start with you. Your overall impressions and concluding thoughts of this episode.
Again, I think they're on a roll. Besides last week's episode, which obviously 2 out of 3 of us loved, I think that they're just building it up so much, and there's a lot of tension still and a lot of unknowns that has kept me interested with every episode. And I think they're getting there with the main story thread that you've been waiting for.
Yeah.
and I'm just excited. I'm really, really excited.
Corey?
I loved season 1, but I love season 2 much more. I love the pace. Everything's moving so fast. There's all these secrets to unveil, and they're getting unveiled rather quickly. Like, Black Canary. She knows who Oliver is and vice versa right away. She even knows her father. I mean, all of this is awesome. The one thing that I want to know more about, you may disagree, is what happened in those 5 years. Why was Sarah kicking Oliver in the stomach? And we're just getting like little chunks in the past 2 episodes, and I just want to see a lot more of what happened there.
Yeah, I think this episode took a dramatic turn for the awesome. I love the heaviness that came with it, the darker tone. Once again, not that everything has to be dark. I want to see light stuff sprinkled in there too. I think his time on the island now is becoming much more interesting to me because of this big turn. I am curious to see how does Merlin tie in with the League. What is the connection there, and why was he allowed to leave the League to come back and destroy the city?
I think he's alive.
Yeah, well, I think he's alive. I think his body going missing. I think it's obvious he's alive.
He's chilling in the Lazarus
We're going to
pit.
see him return. We're going to see him return at some point this season. It's just so many great things about this episode. I was really happy with it, and I would like to see a little bit more of the trio. We were talking the other week about how much we loved the Trinity in there with Diggle and Smoke and Green Arrow. We didn't see a lot of Diggle or Smoke in this one, but I hope they'll probably get back to that a little bit more. I want to see Diggle get a little bit more involved in the action. So I loved it. This was my favorite episode of the series so far. I cannot wait for next week. So, Anne, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at @AnneCampea.
And Carrie?
You can find me at KAORIOUS, Corius.
And you can find me on all the social media networks at John Campea. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. We'll be back again next week for our after show of episode 6 of Arrow next week. I can't wait for it, especially after this week, so I hope you'll be excited too. So until then, see you later.